So the CMA have published their findings from their inquiry to third parties on the Xbox Activision Blizzard merger, and they published a 4-page report. We're going to go through it. There's lots of interesting stuff here, but before we jump into this, there was another interesting thing that came to light yesterday that I saw on Twitter. And if you saw my video yesterday talking about the FTC and how Microsoft provided their points and what they think as to why Sony should have to provide those informations and shouldn't be exempt from the subpoena, because we know Sony right now has filed a motion to get the subpoena quashed and not actually have to provide a lot of the documents that will help the case, I think, for Microsoft at the end of the day. And that's probably why Sony is scared to provide those documents, especially when they show off the information for third-party stuff. And that'll just be interesting in general from a gamer's perspective, from somebody who follows the industry, just to see some of those big third-party deals that Sony does. We got this information here that has to do with the actual deal for Call of Duty, which, as we know, is the main thing that is being argued against in this deal. So we have a tweet here from Idle Sloth, and it says, according to Super Juicer's source, Sony's corporate jet visited Seattle to meet with Microsoft last week for the first time in 18 months. They suggest that they are looking for a resolution. Previously, Sony applied for a perpetual license for Call of Duty, and perpetual license I don't think is something that Microsoft will provide. I mean, that would just be stupid. Like, they won't have to provide that, I don't think, for this deal to go through. So if that's what Sony is looking for, I don't know if Microsoft is going to bite and give in on that. But here's what it says. Second, one source tells me that Sony's corporate jet made a visit to Seattle last week for the first time in 18 months. It suggests that the two firms are meeting to come to a resolution. In early September last year, Microsoft had flown out to Japan to offer a license extension for Call of Duty for 5 years. Sony, I'm told, didn't even take the meeting and thereby rejected this initial offer. It instead asked for a license in perpetuity. With this alleged recent visit, however, the publicly cold relationship appears to be thawing. And my thought on this is that Sony knows that they've got to start thawing out. They've got to start giving in, because if not, they're going to have to provide a lot more information than they want to provide, which is going to give a lot of people insight to some of the anti-competitive stuff that Sony does. We've seen a lot of anti-competitive things that Sony has done with their deals throughout the years, but I think there's a lot more to it, and these documents that potentially are going to come out from Microsoft subpoena, I think, will help show that. And another thing here, as they mentioned, it was 5 years, that first deal. It wasn't 3 years. We saw articles come out, Jim Ryan saying that the 3-year offer was ridiculous. So Sony was essentially lying about the initial deal that Microsoft had given to PlayStation and to Sony for Call of Duty. But we now have this from the CMA. And this is a summary of third-party calls and what the third parties think about this deal. There's some interesting stuff here at the end. Is probably, I would say, the most concerning thing if you're Microsoft, if you're somebody who's wanting this deal to go through, but we will get there. So it says, in relation to the merger, as a part of its phase 2 investigation, the CMA held calls or meetings with 6 third parties during the period from October 2022 to January 2023. We don't know who these third parties are. They don't mention them here, but you could assume like Google, Nvidia, Sony, other big gaming companies, Nintendo, like those are some of the third parties they reached out to. Each of these third parties is a competitor or a potential competitor with the merged entity in either console gaming services or cloud gaming services. The primary purpose of the CMA's discussion with these third parties was to understand the following. So 3 things, or not 3 things, but it's 4 things, 5 things, 4 things. Why I said 3 things. 4 things that they are trying to understand here. Their relationship with Activision. So these third parties' relationship, we know Sony and PlayStation have a major relationship, in fact, being their biggest customer in 2020 and a major customer every single year because they have the marketing deal for Call of Duty. So relationship with Activision and any other game developers and publishers, as well as their views on competition in the console gaming services, including both buy-to-play games and multi-game subscription services and cloud gaming services. So 3 major things here. The buy-to-play stuff, we saw some stuff come out with the media taking one small part of the entire CMA provisional findings and relating it to Game Pass, and how they said Game Pass cannibalizes sales, but it's obviously not that clear cut. And there's been plenty of stuff showing that it helps sales, but obviously there are going to be people that decide to play games on Game Pass rather than go out and purchase the game for price. That just makes complete common sense. And then the other big thing here is cloud gaming and the subscription services. That is going to be a huge thing that the markets are looking at, because Microsoft and Xbox have such a huge advantage right now in cloud gaming. They've done it the best. They have great infrastructure. But they aren't the only ones that have tried. Google's failed. PlayStation has essentially failed with PlayStation Now, and it's showing that these other companies just didn't do it as good as Xbox did. And that's why Xbox has such a big advantage right now in cloud gaming. I don't think it's because they're just anti-competitive and dominating the entire market. I mean, Google has just as many resources and as much money to be able to do it, and they couldn't do it. The third party's views on likely evolution of cloud gaming, so how is it going to grow, and whether the third party had tried or considered using an operating system other than Windows for providing cloud gaming services, and whether they've considered this to be a viable approach to providing cloud gaming services. Windows was another thing that they had brought up as a concern for anti-competitiveness. Now, they also asked them about their views about the merger, and the document here provides an overview of their comments made by the third parties. That's the key thing. Now we get to see kind of what they think of this deal. Now, they also say here in particular, we recognize that the outcome of a merger investigation can have a direct financial or strategic impact on market participants, and we therefore consider the interests and incentives of market participants, as well as the extent to which such claims are consistent with other evidence when assessing that weight to attach to those views. So that's pretty important because they are understanding the fact that this deal is going to have an effect on the competition, on the people within the market, and they have to look at this from an entire perspective, because obviously there are companies out there like Sony that don't want this deal to go through and are going to try to say anything to make sure that this deal doesn't go through, and you can't just take exactly what they say for face value. So that's an important thing there. All right, the next point here. Some of the third parties referred to Microsoft, Xbox, Sony, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch as competitor platforms, though Nintendo was perceived as differentiated on several bases, including in having different technical specifications and content. Well, that's something I've always thought about. Nintendo is like kind of in a world of their own. When you look at the Switch, you compare it to the PS5 and to the Series X and S. Yes, they are direct competitors. They are a major home console, even though the Switch is a dual console handheld as well. But it is a console that is far inferior in terms of the technical specifications, and it's just different in the types of games that they make and provide. They're more family-friendly oriented. However, I mean, their games are incredible. I love all the Nintendo games, but it's just like different when you look at something like, I could say like a Halo or a Hellblade or a Starfield, an Uncharted, a Spider-Man, a God of War. Those types of games are coming from Nintendo, which, I mean, again, personally, I think they make great games. So, but they are different. They are different in terms of their content, and they mentioned that here. But I still think it's an important thing to note that Nintendo have no issues with this deal. They don't care about Call of Duty. They don't need Call of Duty to succeed. So I think that they should be looking at Nintendo as an example of the fact that you don't need Call of Duty on your platform to succeed. You make great content. You're going to succeed. You're going to be able to get people into your ecosystem and into your platform, which PlayStation already has great first-party games. So that alone, it's not even just showing that, oh, you need to make a game succeed. It's that you guys already have great games on PlayStation. You don't need Call of Duty to succeed. So the argument is absurd. Next year, 2 third parties identified the availability of attractive first and third party content as key to a platform's success. Of course, first and third party. I would say third party is actually more important at the end of the day, as we see the numbers come out and more people pick up Xboxes and PlayStations to play third party games than they actually do play first party games. And then they continue here saying, with one also emphasizing overall consumer experience. One third party contended that quality of content library has been demonstrated to drive user satisfaction with gaming consoles, while two commented that the loss of a major title would be harmful to a platform and its users. So there are 2 of these 6 third parties, not just Sony, talking about losing a big third party game that would be very harmful to the platform, or that would be harmful to the platform and the users. And obviously they are referring to and talking about Call of Duty here. One of the third parties characterized Call of Duty as a unique and a driver of console purchase decision making, given its fast development cycle and large, highly engaged audience. And I would say yes and no with that. I would agree with that. Yes, Call of Duty, some people just literally buy a console to play Call of Duty, whether that's Xbox or whether that's PlayStation. But the other thing I think that drives people to purchase the console when it comes to Call of Duty is, where are their friends playing? If the majority of their friends are playing on Xbox, they're going to go to Xbox regardless of whether Call of Duty is on PlayStation or and it came onto if it came onto the Nintendo Switch. Like that's I think a big thing for Call of Duty. It's a multiplayer game. You play where your friends are. So there is crossplay now, but still a lot of people will just go to whatever platform their friends are on, even with crossplay in today's day and age. That's at least that's the way I see it. I know that's what a lot of people that I know operate. They just play where their friends are. In order that Call of Duty's annual releases are very expensive to develop and that these development costs would be even higher for a competitor without the necessary existing infrastructure, they identify Call of Duty players as highly informed and sensitive to lower quality offerings, less acceptable add-ons, delayed release dates, and restrictions to cross-platform on particular platforms. I don't fully agree with that, to be completely honest. I'm not trying to call out Call of Duty players here, but the fact of the matter is people buy Call of Duty that aren't informed at all about competition out there, aren't informed at all about other games that are available. They just literally play Call of Duty. We even saw with the cross-platform stuff, when that was being blocked by PlayStation back in the day, people still went out and bought Call of Duty. They didn't care that cross-platform was wanted by every other platform out there, and Sony was saying no to it, and they still went out and bought the game for PlayStation. They don't look at the other types of things like the less accessible add-ons and delayed release dates. They're just literally going and picking up Call of Duty when Call of Duty comes out, and you can see it by a lot of the numbers of people who play on PC and people who play on Xbox. If everybody was looking at less accessible add-ons, everyone would be playing Call of Duty on PlayStation, because PlayStation has those exclusive marketing deals where you have exclusive content. So I don't know if I fully agree with that. I feel like Call of Duty players are a lot of people who literally just play that and maybe one other game, but again, I could be wrong on that. So again, it goes on here. One third party contended that Microsoft's recent acquisition behavior, including its acquisition of Bethesda and subsequent platform publishing policy, demonstrates a strategy aimed at foreclosing rival gaming platforms, which would harm consumers. So one third party contended this. Sony, right? That would be it. I mean, I'm assuming that would be the third party that would come up and say that they're trying to foreclose PlayStation. Well, who else? No, we haven't heard anybody else really saying that. They go on here to say that some distinguish between the incentives of independent publishers to work with as many platforms as possible and first-party publishers to maximize their platforms' profits. Of course, I mean, third party, you put your game out on more places, you're gonna make more money. One third party noted that none of the independent AAA franchises have sought exclusivity with a particular platform, as this would have the effect of reducing their overall number of users. And again, that's not true. It's completely true. One third party noted that none of the independent AAA franchises have sought exclusivity. I mean, Final Fantasy 16 is exclusive to PlayStation 5. It's coming to PC later, but it's exclusive to PlayStation 5. Right there, that's a AAA franchise that has been bought out by PlayStation to be exclusive to that platform. Yes, I understand it's a third party deal, and then for their next game, they can go and make it on every single platform, but the deals that PlayStation makes to keep games off of Xbox are numerous. There's tons of these deals that they seek, that these AAA franchises are seeking their exclusivity on the PlayStation platform. Multi-game subscription services for console games. This is the next section. So obviously it's increasingly more popular with console gamings, and people have expressed their concerns with the financial sustainability of the model. We know Xbox has come out and said that it is profitable. So I think these other companies are just knowing that they are behind and that they're not going to be able to catch up to Game Pass unless they start right now. And even then, they may not be able to catch up. And it's not because Xbox is out here trying to foreclose them. It's because Xbox was the first in to do it really, really well. And the other companies have been really slow in following in those footsteps and trying to emulate those models. We've seen PlayStation Plus try it with the upgrade in their PlayStation Plus tiers. Continues here and says, one third party contended that Microsoft is already dominant in the multi-game subscription space and that the merger would entrench that position. And I don't get this at all. Yes, they're dominant right now because they have the best service, but you're literally just saying, hey, listen, we're not going to even try to compete. We can't go up against Xbox, which to me is absolutely absurd. PlayStation has more than enough resources to try to compete even more against Xbox Game Pass. So I don't even know why this is something that is even taken seriously when they say that. They say it's going to harm consumers and its competitors in the console gaming and multi-game subscription services. That's obviously Sony saying that. Now, cloud gaming services, this is where, I mean, another thing that they have talked about it as it being a huge thing that they are worried that will become anti-competitive because Microsoft is going to have such a huge hold on it. But obviously it's a nascent market. Latency, bandwidth, and infrastructure are huge technical problems that still need to be addressed for many parts of the world so that you can have a good experience with cloud gaming. And cloud gaming will become a meaningful market. That's the way of gaming. It's the way of the future. Whether you like it or not, cloud gaming is here to stay, and it's going to be the way that pretty much every company I think is going to be going down in the next number of years, because it's the easiest way to get people into your platform to play on really any screen that they want to play on. Now they say here that one third party stated that it considers all providers of entertainment on screens as its competitors in cloud gaming services, and that multi-homing or using more than one gaming service is prevalent among some groups of users. However, identify a lack of hardware required for cloud gaming as a value added over consoles. I mean, of course, you don't need to go out and buy the expensive console. You're just literally playing on your phone. Now, when it comes to this part here, it says all bar one of the third parties identified content, particularly AAA content, as an important element in a successful cloud gaming offering. Note that Activision has significant catalog of AAA content. I mean, you can't deny that. Activision has a massive catalog. It will definitely help Game Pass. Some third parties specifically are talking about the importance of Activision's content on their services, and it's a must-have. I mean, Call of Duty in a subscription service will be a must-have. You will see a lot of people transferring over. Now, it ends off here, and here is, I think, the most negative part against Xbox, and probably the thing maybe to be the most concerned about looking at this deal, if it's going to go through or not, is that it says here that 2 of the third parties did not express any concerns about the merger, but 3 did. 3 third parties said that they contended that the merger would have a negative impact on competition, including by affording Microsoft the ability and incentive to foreclose potential and existing rivals in the console buy-to-play, console multi-game subscription, and cloud gaming spaces. So 3 of those third parties are against this deal right now, saying that it is going to be anti-competitive. So we'll see what the CMA takes away from that, and obviously what their arguments as to why they think this. I think that's going to be really, really important. And then you also had another third party who said it was too early to determine. So just some of the thoughts here about the third parties and what they have said with the merger inquiry from the CMA. They don't mention anything really groundbreaking here, but I think the thing at the end there where it says 3 of the third parties are concerned could have some sort of impact, but we'll see. We'll see what happens, because we know Microsoft right now is still in the process of providing their response to the original provisional findings from the CMA. But I'm going to leave that there, guys. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about this inquiry and about 3 third parties saying that this deal could help Microsoft foreclose rivals. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Bye.